Hi, everyone. So sorry I was a few minutes late and I'm already on the view of the court. Hi, it's Kimbyrleigha, and this is Kimbyrleigha Live, where I break down current and ongoing true crime cases in an easy to understand format. I also have a main true crime channel here on YouTube. It's just my name and a podcast called Dark Livity with my husband, and they're both linked in the description box. Those talk about solved cases in a narrative format. So if that's your thing, you can check them out. I'm sorry I was late. It's my birthday week, so I've been kind of crazy. And my husband was ordering me some sushi, which I'm going to eat right after we're done with this. So, right now, I've got some interesting snacks over here that I'm looking at, and I know I can't have them because that would be rude for me to be like chomping while we're watching. But we are going to be going over day 26 of the Karen Reed retrial. The day began with testimony from Dr. Marie Russell once again, but I have to admit, I was a bit burned out on talking about dog bites and dog claws. I love dogs. I have two of my own. But a little bit of an interesting turn of events right away. It had to do with a sequestration order. Brennan couldn't pronounce it. Dr. Russell couldn't pronounce it. They both slipped up, so I didn't feel so bad when I mispronounced things. But just to brush up and recap on what that is, sequestration orders, which are also exclusion orders, I'm sure you know, it requires witnesses that are going to testify to be kept out of the courtroom many times when they're not testifying and not to discuss their testimony with other witnesses, especially other parties, until they have testified and everything's complete. This is going to ensure that each witness's testimony is based on their own recollection and it's not influenced by what they're hearing in court or from others. Well, apparently, Alessi and Dr. Russell drove to and from the courthouse to their hotel. They're most likely staying in the same place in the same vehicle, and she's gonna call it a limo. I'm guessing it's a hired black car, like an SUV. That's what I have seen, in videos on YouTube and whatnot. I've seen Karen Reed getting out of a black SUV, but she's old school. So she's probably calling it a limo for that reason. Well, Brennan, of course, is going to confront her about something in relation to this. So that's how we're going to get started. I also want to let you know I was going to do a little all day live stream with the Karen Reed trial on Friday because my birthday's on Saturday. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do that yet because I have a lot, as I'm sure you know, a lot of stuff going on. Still posting on my main channel this week and Dark Livity. I think Dark Livity goes out tomorrow. So just a lot going on, but I really enjoy these lives. We also have a lot of new members to the Law Baddies Club. So that's kind of fun. Also, at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about restructuring my memberships so that it's fair for everyone. They feel like they're getting their perks, and I'll discuss that at the end. But let's jump into court and let me prepare for you what I have. And I want to listen as well. That would make sense, wouldn't it? I'm going to get new headphones, I promise. Happy early birthday to me. Okay, here we go. I actually found out I can lock my screen too, so I don't have to worry about moving it out of place. Here we go.
When you testified last year, and then the more recent hearings that we've had over the past 4 or 5 months. Do you remember that question?
Yes.
And when I asked you that question, I asked if you had help with your report, and you told us that there was a woman who helped you with your report.
I told you that there was someone who helped me or made suggestions in organizing the report, having certain sentences placed in certain categories.
When I asked you about the identity, the person who actually helped you, I asked you if it was one of the attorneys, and you had said no.
That is correct.
May I approach your Honor?
Yes.
She's being challenged on who helped her write this report. She is claiming that she only had organizational help, but there's a prior transcript that he's going to be showing her that confirms she stated that attorney Alessi assisted.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. You had testified in December 22nd, 2024 in this case?
I believe it was that date, yes.
And when you testified back in December of 2024, do you remember I asked you who it was that had assisted you with your report?
I don't remember that specifically.
Well, I'm going to show you a page from the testimony. This is from the hearing. And I asked you, line 21, page 207, did anybody help you write this report? And what did you say?
I wrote the report.
If you could finish, please.
I had some help with some minor edits, rearranging, some paragraphs or whatsoever, but putting things in the right category.
Then I said, okay. And you answered?
No, I wrote the report.
And then finally I asked, who helped you with your report? What did you tell us?
I said, Mr. Lessie.
Hi, Cal.
Is Mr. Leslie, is that gentleman the attorney who asked questions on direct examination?
Yes.
Okay. And so,
Obviously.
did Mr. Leslie help you with your report?
What I recall is we discussed the report, but I recall that it was someone else that actually helped me rearrange the report. That's my memory right now.
Is your memory different now than it was last December?
Well, I don't think so, but, you have something in writing.
Do you think you would have testified to that if it was inaccurate?
Mr. Alessi did not help write the report. He may have helped organize and make a suggestion about what is training versus what is experience, but he did not help me write the report.
Did you have any help trying to describe methodology?
No.
You had any help talking about differential diagnosis?
No, I'm very familiar with differential
And
diagnosis.
so, after that report was written, is there any reason why some of your opinions have changed?
I don't believe my opinions have changed.
When you testified at the hearing last year, June 21st, 2024, did you express that you couldn't say with 100% certainty what type of animal, in your opinion, caused those wounds?
100% certainty, that is absolutely correct. And I'd like to see that, but yes, that's my recollection.
If you recollect,
So she's asking to see that. That's going to become important.
I'm happy to show you what
Yes,
you
please.
testified to. You want to
Yes,
see it again?
yes.
Okay. And by the way, between last night and today, did you get any advice from anybody suggesting you should ask for a transcript when I ask you a question? Did that advice come your way?
That's my general advice from previous times.
Well, did you have any advice last night about that?
Yes.
Yes. You know what? She's honest, right? I mean, you should be. You're under oath. You're in a trial. But she did talk to the defense.
Who told you last night that you should always ask for a transcript when I'm asking you questions?
Well, I think it was just Mr. Alessi.
I want to be like, good. She's not explaining. Don't explain. Just answer. It's so much easier. You're just telling exactly what happened.
So did you and Mr. Alessi, you know there's a sequestration order, don't you?
Yes.
A sequestration order that you're not supposed to discuss the case at all with anybody?
Well, we didn't discuss specifics.
Do you know that the sequestration order mandates that you not discuss anything about the case from when you start your testimony until you end your testimony? You know that, right?
I understand that there is a sequestration order.
Do you understand the sequestration order
Both of them couldn't pronounce it. So I was like, see, we all do it.
mandates that you're not supposed to speak to people, including the attorneys, about this case overnight? Did you understand that?
There were no specifics discussed.
Or did you understand that you weren't supposed to, is what I'm asking? Did you know that's a violation of the sequestration
No, I did
order
not.
to speak to the attorneys overnight?
I did not know that that particular conversation would be a violation.
So did you meet with Attorney Alessi last night?
No.
How was it that you had a conversation with him?
Actually, it might have been in the vehicle.
You drove together?
Yes.
So did you commute to and from court together with Attorney Alessi?
There's a driver.
Okay. Who else is in the car when you left court yesterday?
The driver.
When
Oh,
you-
no, I wasn't with him yesterday, no. Not in the car yesterday, no.
Well, you just said that you spoke to Attorney Alessi yesterday. And I'm trying to figure out, when was it that you were having conversations with Mr. Alessi relative to the sequestration order that you're under?
This morning, riding to court
Okay, so you and Attorney Alessi drove to court?
with the limo driver, yes.
Well, who was in the limo with you and Attorney Alessi?
The limo. Now, in the last video, I talked about clout or the assumption from Alessi that maybe not Alessi, sorry, Brennan, that she is somehow wanting to be involved in this case for the fame or the notoriety. She said limo, but I think we all know it's probably like an Uber or a black car. Either way, I don't know. Could this look bad? Like, oh, you're driving in a limo with the defense counsel. I think we all know they're from out of town, but I don't know.
On the way to court today.
That was just us.
Just you two?
Yeah.
Thank you.
What else did you both talk about other than that you should ask for a transcript every time I ask you a question?
That's what we talked about specific to this case.
Was it a long conversation?
No, not at all.
The entire ride here, there must be more you spoke about other than just a sequestration order.
We did. We spoke about Boston, how I love Boston area. We spoke about New York. We spoke about other things. And in fact, I have to say that even on the ride back to the hotel yesterday with others in the car, nobody spoke about the case.
But I'm talking about this morning when you did speak about the case. What else? Not about the Red Sox or the weather. What else did you talk to Attorney Alessi about this morning other than you should ask for a transcript every time I ask you a question?
We talked about what I did last night.
About this case?
No.
I'm sorry, but I'm asking about this case.
That was it.
I want to know what all the discussions were between you and this attorney today or last night about this case.
Just that I should ask for a transcript.
Well, there must have been some concept. There must have been some context. He didn't just turn to you talking about the weather and say, hey, you should ask for a transcript. You must have been talking about...
True. I thought about that. I was like, had to be some kind of conversation going on. I don't know what to think about this. It's not a huge major deal. I'm sure they weren't discussing strategies and stuff like that. They're going to and from. I don't know how far the hotel is. I mean, how do we know, right? I think she still has the same perspective, so to speak, that she did the day before. I don't think there's going to be like a major breakthrough, but I think it is important to look at a transcript. If you're being challenged and somebody said you're saying something, that's kind of normal. And as a matter of fact, Alessi could have asked her to be able to do that. Like objection, can she look at a transcript? So I don't think this is as big of a deal, but to the jurors, it probably does look big.
something.
He also generally, not today, but generally says, be honest. Always be honest.
Fantastic. But this morning,
He's
about
like, fantastic.
your testimony, what did he tell you? Did he tell you this morning you should be honest?
Not this morning.
Okay. Does anybody need to remind you to be honest when you testify?
No.
Okay. What else did he tell? How did it come up? Hey, by the way, ask for transcripts.
I don't even know how it came up. I didn't put much significance to it.
Well, it was just moments ago it happened because you just got to court. You can't remember the context of the sage advice of Attorney Alessi?
Sage advice. Brendan was getting a little ridiculous with some of this. It's like not that big of a deal to ask to see something. It happens all the time.
No.
Do you have any memory issues?
Oh, wow. That was so insulting. So I'm going to go back for 1 second.
Of Attorney Alessi?
No.
Do you have any memory issues?
No.
That was very ageist. I think generally speaking, they're going to ask a lot of people about memory issues, and that's kind of normal. But I mean, read the room. Like, I feel like that's apparently there were people who did not take kindly to this in the jurors, in the jury. But I felt bad for her in that moment because she was like, I can't believe he went there. Just he's younger than her. So it's like, you watch what you say to your elders. I know they're in court, but it's insulting to ask a wiser person if they have memory issues.
May I approach?
Yes.
Transcript, page 36.
But you know what? She's badass.
Since you've asked for the transcript, I asked for you.
She holds her own. She's a smart woman. She's intelligent. She's educated. She's well-spoken. And you know what? Her feathers don't really get ruffled.
Dr. Russell, this is June 21st, 2024. I had asked you whether you expressed that you couldn't say with 100% certainty. You agreed with my answer, so there's no need to try to refresh your memory, but I'm going to show it to you because you asked.
I'm going to show it to you because you asked. No need to be... It's not a question. He's saying this so that the jury can hear it.
We can take a look at line 16. Is that now consistent with the questions I asked you and the answer that you gave, that you were less than 100%, you couldn't be 100% certain?
I don't know why he's
That looks
talking so
consistent.
low.
Do you want more time with the transcript?
No.
So in the last trial, she had said she's not 100% sure that it was a dog-inflicted wound. And that's what he's getting at. Now she's more sure.
Has anybody else talked to you about your testimony today overnight, Dr. Russell?
No.
When you testified last year, same transcript that we just looked at, do you remember when you gave your opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, you said that you thought the wounds were from an animal, possibly a large dog?
On that same date?
Yes,
May I see the
of
transcript?
course.
Yeah, take a look. You're allowed
So
to.
to Attorney Alessi's advice, let me approach.
Again, that's an objection. It's just no need. It's like drilling this point home is kind of unnecessary. So it's actually making him look bad.
I'm going to strike that, disregard that, Joyce.
May I approach?
Yes.
The judge
Page
struck
one,
that.
sir.
23.
And when she says possibly, it's less definite, right? Using possibly. But he's claiming her methodology, identifying the dog bites, how she's doing it. He's going to challenge that whole part.
June 21st, 2024, Doctor?
June 21st.
Page 23, line 14. Will you ask the question based on everything we've discussed today? Is it your opinion based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty these injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog? What did you say?
I said yes.
Thank you.
She said possibly a large dog. To me, I don't feel like that's changing her testimony that much, but I guess. But remember, she's using pattern recognition, differential diagnosis, which we're going to get into, and he's going to kind of challenge that and say those are not valid ways. You know, there has to be formal standards. And it's going to come out that Russell's going to admit there's no widely accepted standards or certifications or methodologies for identifying dog bites. Okay, so we're going to get into that. But
Have that back.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
let's just see what else he has here. And don't worry, I won't make you wait too long for the more explosive testimony, if you will.
When you gave your opinion, not this year, last year, you agreed when you were assessing the wound, you used the word, or adopted the word possibly, didn't you?
Explain the context of it,
Sure.
that sentence?
Sure. Go right ahead.
No, you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Please
When
rephrase
you-
the question.
When you were asked about your opinion last year, not this year, last year, about whether to a reasonable degree of medical certainty the injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog, you agreed with that characterization. A large animal, possibly a dog, didn't you?
Yes, an animal, possibly a large dog, last year, yes.
When you were on direct examination, there were tons of questions about this word methodology. Do you remember all those questions you were asked?
In June?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay, yes.
Yes. And when you were asked about methodology, was that an attempt to try to explain that you weren't just looking at an abrasion and guessing or eyeballing it? You were trying to suggest some type of scientific or medical process?
This is a doctor. Doctors observe with their eyes what's going on. I really messed up my thumb once. I'm sure you all can relate to this, but I bite my nails, shouldn't do it. And my thumb got infected, the skin around my thumb. It really isn't a big deal for a doctor to look and say, I know what kind of wound that is. This is what we have to do. To be fair, that's what doctors will start with, the examination of the body, right? And then if they need to go deeper, that's another thing. But for him to be like, you were eyeballing these wounds, it's kind of offensive because that's what a doctor would do.
To give some type of certainty to your opinion?
That is the process I used.
When you talked about methodology yesterday, you talked about your experience in methodology with knife wounds and gunshot wounds, correct?
Yes?
But there
Laura.
was no methodology whatsoever regarding looking at a photograph and then identifying whether that is consistent with dog bites, is there?
I disagree.
When you described methodology, you were asked by Attorney Alessi whether or not you've engaged in that methodology regarding dog bites. Did you agree that there is really no methodology regarding dog bites?
I disagree.
When you use the word methodology regarding dog bites, there isn't something specific you're looking at as if you were looking at a fingerprint. There are points of comparison. You don't do that, do you?
There are no specific points that are published by a organization, for instance, on how to determine something is a dog bite. However, I did use different methodologies, including what we talked about, the differential diagnosis, the pattern recognition. Pattern recognition, again, is so important in medicine.
Something I want to point out is if there was a class or a methodology, she would be the one teaching the actual class, not learning about it. She's the expert in her field. So I'm thinking maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. But to be fair, yes, she's looking at a picture of John O'Keefe's wounds. But why is it okay that other medical examiners look at just photos of wounds? Why is it a thing? It's actually a thing in investigations to take a bunch of photos and then later other investigators, other medical examiners, other pathologists will look at those same photos. So I kind of think it's unfair to have one stance when it's not your witness and another stance when it is, because his witnesses also looked at those photos.
It's what pathologists use to diagnose tumors.
There
For
is no
instance.
standard. There is no recognized standard anywhere for methodology on how to identify a dog bite wound, is there?
There is
Where is
no
it?
published standard from an organization that I am aware of.
So there is no source. There is no recognized community. There's no certification. There is no recognized.
Pattern recognition. If you've seen it once, you've seen it again and again. You can see the pattern and you can also see the actual pattern in his arm. But when she's saying pattern, that is a method. You've seen it before, you've seen it again. And then also the differential diagnosis, which I think is even more important and interesting.
Method in identifying a superficial abrasion as a dog bite. Isn't that fair to say?
As in many conditions in the medical field, there are no certifications.
How about published standards? Is there any published standards whatsoever, any, regarding claims that a superficial abrasion is a dog bite? Are there any published standards by any organization?
No, but there would have to be thousands of published standards to identify the causes of the thousands of different types of abrasions. So
What's interesting about this is she made a really good point. I don't know if I caught it later on or not, but usually you know when you got bitten by a dog, right? This is an unusual circumstance where she is having to identify a wound without somebody being able to tell her what happened. Usually a parent or the victim of a dog attack being mauled will tell what happened. But if she's seen it before, she can identify it later when a victim cannot tell her. So she made that point, and I don't know where, but it was really good. And I was like, right. But now he's going to go into how do you know it's the difference between claws and teeth. And I thought this was interesting. That's why I'm sharing it.
Well, when you first started testifying in this case, you never suggested you had to look at everything in totality. You were giving opinions regarding individual wounds. Isn't that fair to say?
no,
It wasn't until I began asking you questions and you had inconsistent answers that you've now changed from, rather than identifying individual wounds, now you're saying I can't identify individual wounds, but I can tell you in totality.
I disagree with that. I believe that the very first time I testified, I mentioned that the overall pattern was important.
When you first testified, so today, before we get to your testimony, you're saying this could be either teeth or nails, but you think it's probably teeth.
Correct.
How probable? Do you think it's certainly teeth, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty? You're not sure? What is the
Jennifer.
value of your certainty or lack of certainty about what caused this wound?
Reasonable degree of medical certainty.
What is a reasonable degree of medical certainty? That what?
That those are caused by teeth.
Teeth. Okay. When you first testified, your position was it could have been teeth or nails. That is different than saying, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, teeth, isn't it?
No, there is a small possibility that they could be caused by nails.
When you first testified, you didn't qualify it as a small possibility, did you?
I perhaps wasn't asked.
Well, you answered. Remember when you were asked about it and you answered? You talked about that it was a pattern close to the shoulder with parallel marks. Do you remember?
Do I remember what?
Saying that this is a pattern close to the shoulder, right? That they're superficial. You agree with that still?
Yes.
And did you say they were consistent with teeth and nail marks?
Yes.
Okay. Nails on a dog, oftentimes or most times, are horseshoe-shaped, aren't they?
They're generally conical shape.
You don't think that nails on a dog in your studies have a horseshoe shape?
I think it depends on the grooming of the dog and if the nails were cut recently. But
Exactly. When they first get cut, yes, they have a little half circle, I would say, like the horseshoe, but not if they're my dogs. Ooh, they don't always get to the vet on time. So they have really pointy ones. So I agree with that. They're not always going to be that shape. They can make my dogs or a dog. Remember, babe, my husband's on here. A dog scratched me the other day. I was walking and this dog jumped up on me and it scratched my stomach and it was kind of red for a while. it was definitely a line. Now, obviously, I didn't have a blood mark to look at it, but what I noticed is when I was on the live watching this live, so many people were in the comments and they were like, listen, I've been cut by my dog, or I've been bitten by my dog. Or they said, I showed this to my husband. I showed John O'Keefe's arm to my husband. He has no medical, degree at all. And he said, oh my gosh, that looks like a dog bite. And then someone else was like, I showed it to my child. And they were like, whoa, what happened to them? Did they get attacked by a dog? So I think if we didn't know any of the other things we do know, we might at first glance say, whoa, is that a dog that did that?
But in general, they come to a point. They're at the end of the paw. They come to a point, and by the way, the paws can open and close, so the distance between the nails can vary.
Good point. I was like, that's a really good point that I didn't even think about, is like the claws can open and close. They're not going to stay in one spot. So if it was kind of doing something different when it was pulling, let's just say hypothetically that's what happened, they could be different sizes.
Depending on the how that claw impacts the skin. So in many ways, they resemble the overall shape of canine teeth.
And so to get back to my question here, you're saying that this could have been caused by dog nails?
It's possible.
Do you know, or do you think that the teeth in the dog are different shapes and sizes?
Oh yes, depending on the tooth, there's different shapes and sizes. Absolutely.
When you testified the first time and you said that you thought it was teeth or nails, do you remember testifying a couple days later in front of a group of people and you again iterated that this could be teeth or claw marks? That was your testimony last year, teeth or claw marks, right?
I'm going to object to the characterization of that prior proceeding.
So just prior proceeding, folks, that's all we need.
Did you testify at that prior proceeding last summer that this could have been teeth or claw marks?
I would need to see the transcript.
She didn't see it again. We're going to move on though, because yes, she said either one. It could be possible. Anything could be possible, right? We're going through the possibilities. I know nobody likes to hear that because they want something definite. They want to know what happened. Is it the lower jaw, top jaw? Is it claws? Is it teeth? You tell me what you see.
I have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by teeth or claws.
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether these were caused by either dog teeth or dog claws?
I have an opinion.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Individually, no.
So as a whole, she's okay saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that as a whole, this was a dog attack or a dog bite. But individually taking each one out of the context of his entire arm, she doesn't feel comfortable doing that.
The one near the wrist, you had testified yesterday.
I 100% agree. Follow Your Dream says, I want him to stop. His questions have been answered the same over and over. Exactly. And
There's lines in what you believe to be an arc, correct?
Yes, they have a general overall appearance of an arc.
If there's an arc and there's two linear abrasions on the outside borders, wouldn't these necessarily have to be the outside borders from canine teeth?
Not necessarily.
They're longer than the middle ones, aren't they?
The abrasions are, but doesn't mean the teeth are.
If
right.
this was an arc, like you claimed, you think different teeth other than the canines could have caused the outside scratches?
It's possible.
Yeah, because what if it's the side? There's still teeth there. Doesn't mean just because they're long, the tooth. I see what she's saying. But he's going to point to the one on the left and say, well, look at this. They're separated more.
And you do note the distance between the top and bottom of those wounds compared to the distance in number 2 and the distance in number 1.
I see the difference, yes.
And you have to concede, Dr. Russell, that the same set of teeth, the same canines, could not reasonably have caused this wound, and this wound, given the distance between the inside and outside.
First of all, I'm not certain that these are all canines, as I mentioned earlier. Secondly, you have to take into account that skin is elastic. It bends. It depresses. So
That's a good point. That the skin is elastic. It's not one solid piece of something that's moving. Things are happening in the moment.
you could have two prongs, for instance, of a pitchfork, for instance, just as an example, impact the skin in different places, and the measurement between the two can be slightly different depending on the elasticity of the skin and the underlying structures.
This is not a slight difference, Dr. Russell, is it? The distances-
Again,
Objection, Your Honor.
So there was a question to that, so I'm going to let that.
Thank you.
Again, Dr. Russell, the distance here, it's not insignificant, is it?
Mr. Brennan, I already mentioned that I did not think that these were caused by two canine teeth.
She's already said this, like somebody said in the comments, over and over again. She's not going to get tripped up, but he is going to go into her differential diagnosis. And this is the whole method where you're looking at different types of injuries. She's had a lot of experience. She can tell this kind of injury from this kind of injury. Maybe we couldn't. I mean, some of it I feel like is common sense, but not everything is. Most of it, she's going to be using her medical degree, experience, and things like that. But he's going to challenge that because he's going to tell her that she's just doing that so that you can say it's not a collision, but that's exactly what's happening. She doesn't believe it was a collision because of the wounds.
When you testified yesterday, you used the term differential diagnosis. I want to ask you a lot of questions about differential diagnosis. Do you remember using that term?
Yes.
And differential diagnosis was really just a way for you to try to get your opinion to the jury that these injuries were not consistent with a car accident. That's what a fancy way of doing it is, right?
No, it was a method I used.
Differential diagnosis, you're claiming that you can say this is not from a car accident or a car collision. That's what you're trying to say, aren't you?
That was the result of my differential diagnosis and my pattern recognition
So
methodologies.
If you're going to exclude a cause of the injury, in this case, a collision, you have to know a little bit about collisions, don't you?
Sir, she has treated these injured thousands of people who have been involved with collisions in the emergency room. That's probably more than someone who's done accident reconstruction, but he's going to argue, you're not an accident reconstructionist, are you? And I feel bad for her that he even has to ask that. He's had plenty of experts in accident reconstruction. And we're going to get to some crash daddies. But right now, I feel like, why are you even asking her this? She's a doctor. Like,
Don't you?
Yes, I don't know how to answer that.
Well, try.
Can you be more specific?
If you're going to say that these superficial abrasions could not have been caused by a car collision, you kind of have to understand a little bit about the mechanics of a car collision, don't you?
Actually, I disagree. However, I've treated thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents and have seen the wound patterns that they come into the emergency room with, and that forms a basis for me.
Do you really think?
I'm sorry, can you finish?
somebody in the comments said, Lindsay said, or not Lindsay, Susie was speaking to Lindsay and said, after the plow driver cross-examination, I don't think anyone would like this attorney. He plays dirty. I haven't seen that yet. I'm going to watch it tonight when I'm watching the baby as I'm getting ready for bed. And then I'll come back tomorrow to talk about it. But I watched a little bit of it this morning. They did a much better and thorough job with him on the stand this time, because last time I don't think we knew what things looked like. And a lot of people are visual like I am. So that was good that they went in a little more depth.
Did you finish that answer, Doctor?
No.
Did I cut you off?
I believe so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
Oh, he
No,
was nice that
the
time.
thousands of victims of motor vehicle accidents. I've looked at their wounds. I've treated their wounds, cleaned their wounds, touched their wounds, and that is what I use as a basis, part of my basis, to determine that these were not caused or not consistent with a motor vehicle accident.
When you first gave that opinion that it wasn't consistent with a motor vehicle accident, it's fair to say you didn't have a lot of information at that time when you first came in and said that, correct?
Specific to this case,
Yes. Yes.
I didn't have a lot of information. That's correct.
Okay. And so in order to rule out a collision causing these wounds, let me ask you, are you an accident reconstruction expert?
Reconstruction? No.
Did you ever go to any academy for training to receive any type of degree or certificates in car collisions?
Actually, I did receive a certificate in hit and run accident investigation from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council when I was a police officer.
He was not expecting that answer, even though she admits it wasn't in depth or anything, but still, I don't think he was expecting that.
Do you agree that what training you did have was rudimentary?
It probably was, yes.
Well, not probably. You've used that word before. Wouldn't you say that any training you have had has been rudimentary?
In terms of
Accident-
accident
Yes.
investigation, yes.
Have you ever testified as an expert anywhere in accident reconstruction?
No.
Do you know what ACTAR is?
ACTAR? APTAR?
Yes.
No.
It's a certification group for collision specialists, accident reconstructionists. Is it fair to say that you're not ACTAR qualified?
Objection, Your Honor.
Oh my God. Look at her smirk.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Are you ACTAR qualified?
No, and I don't know any physicians that are.
Good comeback, though. Like Courtney said, it's their job to go back and forth. It's their job to discredit them. But to be fair, both ways, Brennan can be, I think he sometimes forgets certain, I don't know what you want to call it. Like he's over the top a little bit sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I give him credit. He does a good job on things. But with this, I feel like he really is trying to do what he's supposed to do, like you said, discredit. But she had that certificate for hit and run accidents, not super in depth, but this is her area of expertise. She looks at wounds. And actually, let's go back for a second because I think she's going to talk about that. I kind of skipped it.
Are you ACTAR qualified? Because of the car collision and the injuries that were related to that car collision.
No, that's outside my scope.
It's beyond your expertise.
Beyond the expertise of a physician, yes.
Right. Yet, yesterday, you offered the jury your opinion that these wounds were not consistent with a car collision. Did you offer that opinion yesterday?
Wounds are in my area of expertise.
Exactly.
So, yes, I am very comfortable talking about wounds from a variety of sources, including motor vehicle accidents.
I'm sorry, I didn't want the siren to interrupt you.
Okay. Yeah, wounds are definitely within my area of expertise.
When you considered your opinion to this jury that this was not caused by a car collision, do you know what type of vehicle is in question?
Yes.
Have you ever studied the vehicle to look at the make, model, the height of different things like the bumper, perhaps the taillight? Have you ever studied that in this case?
I'm aware of some of those factors.
She's going to get into this, but we're going to move ahead just a little bit. She's there to give her opinion about the wounds. And the way I thought of it just now, and I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, she doesn't necessarily need to look at all this other stuff. It might seem bad. Maybe to the jury, they're like, yeah, why didn't she do this? And why didn't she do what? But then I thought about it this way. Might be a bad example, but it's the way my brain worked. If you know what a duck looks like and you know what a horse looks like, and you're sitting near a pond and a duck goes by, and later somebody keeps telling you it was a horse, and they're like, it was a horse. This is what it described. It had, a mane and it had horseshoes on it. You're like, well, no, I saw the duck. I know what the duck looks like. Even if they told you all about the horse, you'd be like, no, but I know it's a duck. And I know that's probably a bad example, but that's how I thought about it. It's almost like she doesn't need to look at all these other things because when she saw those wounds, she automatically knew that is from a dog or an animal, possibly a large dog. So I think that was my point, is just she doesn't really need to look at all that other stuff, in her opinion.
Have you studied that before you gave this opinion? Yes. Did you go and actually look at the photos, do any measurements before you came up with this opinion?
Not before I came up with the opinion, no.
Did you ever look at the damage to the rear taillight of the defendant's vehicle and see if it was in similar or the same height of Mr. O'Keefe if he was standing up? Did you ever do that?
I have looked at photographs.
And when you looked at the photos, did you see that a 6'1" man like Mr. O'Keefe, if he stood, his elbow would be the exact height of Miss Reed's broken taillight? Did you notice that?
I noticed that there was a similar, that the height would be similar. The height of the elbow and the taillight, yes.
Did you look at photographs of Miss Reed's broken taillight and see if where the break was corresponded closely or directly to the same height as Mr. O'Keefe's elbow and forearm?
I did.
And did you see that it matched up height-wise perfectly?
Close, yes.
You have really no, respectfully, comprehension about the details of the car collision in this case, do you?
I have some understanding of the allegations of a possible collision.
I like how she maintains that it's an alleged collision. They're alleging that this incident happened.
Know how slowly or fastly Miss Reed's Lexus was traveling on January 29, 2022 at about 12:32 a.m., right around the time that you think these wounds happened?
I have some knowledge of the alleged speed at the time of the alleged collision.
Do you have any knowledge about the surroundings, the outside, whether the ground was soft or frozen?
I understand that there was snow on the ground.
How much snow do you understand was on the ground when Mr. O'Keefe's body first landed on that ground?
Several inches.
Where did you get the information that there were several inches of snow on the ground when Mr. O'Keefe landed?
You asked me when?
Where did you get that information from?
A report that I read.
Have you ever seen the videos or the reports that when Mr. O'Keefe was moved from the ground, it was grass and dirt under him?
Yes, I saw a picture.
Okay. Not 2 inches of snow. The ground, the cold, hard ground. Did you see anything that said that?
Yes, I saw an area of grass in the picture.
Have you ever looked at Mr. O'Keefe's pants to see if there was any dirt or grass stains on the back of them?
I've seen pictures.
Did you realize when you were forming your opinions about the source or the genesis or the cause of these abrasions, did you look at his pants and study?
She doesn't feel like she needs to look at any of that because she's looking at the wounds. And this is where I get hung up. And Courtney and I go back and forth, and I'm like, but the wounds don't make sense to me. The lack thereof and the ones he does have. So I think this would even be more concrete to a doctor. Like they'd be like, I don't need to look at all this other stuff. When the person came in, this is what they presented with. And that's kind of how she's thinking of it. I don't need to look at all that stuff because, like she's going to say right here, there's no possible way that that made that injury. I think I missed
From
it.
the defendants
Glass.
that you offered us yesterday.
Sorry,
The
hang on.
defendants- Did you see this photograph of a piece of taillight that matches the defendant's taillight of her SUV? Did you consider this piece of evidence that was found in the debris field?
Not specifically.
76A, please.
He's just going
Same
over all
question.
this.
Did you consider this piece of the debris field when you were coming to your conclusions that you offered us yesterday?
I considered that there would be several pieces of metal, plastic, or glass at the scene.
Did you consider this picture of plastic from the defendant's rear taillight found at that scene? Did you consider that before you gave your opinion to the jury?
No.
You can take that down, please. Would there be any significance in your study, in the foundation of your opinion, that a collision or impact did not cause Mr. O'Keefe's wounds on his arm? Was it important for you to determine whether or not the taillight to the defendant's Lexus was broken early that morning?
I think there needs to be more to the question.
So this was interesting to me because he's challenging the fact that, she's not examining all the evidence, like the shoe, the hat, the debris, everything that was found near his body. And she pretty much admits like she's not using that in her assessment. She saw some of it. She saw some of it later. She saw some of it before. But again, she's looking at the medical evidence. She's looking at the wounds and the wounds that were on his body and the medical examiner report and things like that because that is her expertise. But he's going to keep challenging her.
Okay. When you were considering potential causes of injuries, did you know that the defendant's Lexus rear right taillight was broken and missing pieces?
Yes.
Was it important to time when that taillight was broken?
What do you mean by time?
You understand that Mr. O'Keefe was found on January 29th, 2022, yes?
Yes.
Early morning hours.
Yes.
When you were making your differential diagnosis, was it important for you to learn whether around that time the defendant's taillight was broken?
It was important to know. I still don't understand the question. I'm having a trouble
Okay,
understanding the
it's
question.
my fault. I'll try to ask it a different way. You were considering as much facts and information as you could to give a solid opinion in front of this jury, weren't you?
Yes.
And you ultimately have offered an opinion that the wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's arm are not consistent with an impact or a collision with a vehicle, yes?
That's correct.
You know the vehicle in question in this case is the defendant's vehicle, her Lexus.
Yes.
And you learned that her right rear taillight was broken and missing pieces, yes?
Yes.
Did you want to know if there was any evidence depicting when that taillight was broken, in considering this conclusion?
Yes.
Did you know that there was video from 5:07 a.m. showing that the defendant's taillight was missing pieces?
There's going to be objection because that is a fact that's not in evidence. That is not a definite, that is something that the jury needs to figure out because we're going to be going there a little later. So that was interesting. I have some other pictures to show you later because I had to blow some of them up. But that's what's being argued, all of this. They're just assuming. We don't know. And my eyes are playing tricks on me. I said it today. when I was with my husband and I was looking over all this stuff, I was like, sometimes it's intact, sometimes it doesn't look intact. But let's continue.
I'm going to allow that.
Not at the time, but I expected that if there were a collision, that there would be pieces of the car, involved. So that didn't really make any difference.
When you were trying to rule out a collision between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed's vehicle did not cause these injuries, did you want to seek that information about the broken taillight and date and time it?
A broken taillight in and of itself could not cause those injuries.
There you go. A broken taillight in and of itself could not cause those injuries. And don't worry, she's going to explain why.
There would have to be multiple projections from the vehicle that were lined up in a certain pattern to give those parallel marks all in the same direction. So, that's why a broken taillight could not have done that.
That's why she didn't feel the need to investigate further. Because remember, when she got on this case, her whole objective was, they're wondering if it's a dog bite? Let me look at it. I'll let them know right now. Either they can just rule it out and move on, or if it is a dog bite, I'll let them know. And when she figured out it was a dog bite, then she started working for them because they're like, well, you're an expert in this. You know everything about this. But wait, just wait.
So in your investigation, you did not want to know when that taillight was broken?
Oh, I did, but for information only.
Did you review the ring video from 5:07 a.m. at Meadows Ave?
Later on, later on in the, not initially when I had the initial records, but later on I did.
Did you have that information before or after you arrived at your opinion?
Oh, after.
So you had already arrived at your opinion, then you received new information, which was
I just turned the court up a little bit. Somebody said to turn it up, so I did.
that ring video, correct?
And it confirms, yeah.
And then you received more information. Did you receive photographs from a dash cam during a wellness check showing the defendant's Lexus missing pieces of her right rear taillight at about 8:03 a.m. that morning?
Would that be? I'm not sure which video that is.
Well, it's not a video. If we could put up Exhibit 10.
So I was glad they were going to put this up. I've seen this so many times. And one time I texted Courtney and I was like, oh my God, there's no taillight there. And then I let my husband look at it. And he was like, yeah, there is. There's snow on it. It can't form the bumpy pattern on the outside. He didn't say it that way, but after we were looking at it, he's like, there's snow that's like packed on it. It's on top. And then I looked again and I was like, oh, I see. I'm like, wait, yeah, it has to be intact. We'll get there.
It actually was from a video. Did you look at this picture during your differential diagnosis?
I think I've seen that picture before.
And
The
could we have-
the vehicle parked, yes.
Exhibit 11, please. Did you consider this picture in your differential diagnosis?
I don't know that I ever saw this picture.
Seeing this picture, do you see that the right rear taillight is missing pieces?
I can't even see.
How's the court volume now? Let me know.
Yes, I do see that. But again, these pieces would have to be lined up in a certain configuration in order to cause those wounds.
Okay, so this is the infamous photo, okay, and we're looking at the right side, but I'm going to show you a photo because I already set up some photos for you. Let me find the one I need. It's right here. I feel like maybe this is a better version. I don't know. I got this from the exhibits, but let's just see if we can blow it up a little bit more. Oh, you're not going to see my face, but it's not important. Okay, so we're looking at the right side, obviously, but can you see the shape? Let's just say there was no taillight there. How would that rectangle area be there? Because if there's nothing there, then the snow would just go inside of it and all we would see would be white right there. So this is the picture that I just have a hard time with because I'm like, wait, it does look like it's there. So I was like, all right, let's look at some other photos. No, not that one. This is what I'm talking about. See this bumpy kind of area? Oh, you can't see my cursor. But on the right-hand side, there's a bumpy sort of shape to this taillight. Okay. So I know it's not as big, but you can kind of see the outline there. And then, because I had to understand this, if you look at the scoop that's connecting the bottom red part to the white part or the clear part, there's like a little indent there where snow could catch. So, in the picture they're showing of the still shot, if that wasn't there, we wouldn't see that indentation. We wouldn't see that little ledge. And then, oh, we didn't get there yet. Don't look at that one. Okay. So, we're just focusing on this one right now. I don't know. You tell me. I feel like my eyes play tricks on me. Sometimes I don't see it, and sometimes I do. You tell me.
So seeing this photograph now for the first time, it doesn't in any way shape or change your opinion, does it?
No.
You had, as a police officer, when you're excluding the source, and in this case you're saying the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's scratches on his arm could not have been from a collision, do you listen to witness testimony or do you review witness statements?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that. Just, do you do that?
As a police officer, in investigating a car accident, is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Did I listen? Did I take witness statements? Yes.
And do you value the statements as part of your analysis?
I give varying values depending on what I believe to be the veracity of the witness.
Good night, Laura.
Have you listened to the statements of the defendant herself in this case regarding potential impact?
No. What do you mean?
Well, have you seen any statements made by
This was a really good question for her, but she had a perfect answer. I was like, oh, Brendan's getting somewhere. And I was like, oh, no, she's not.
the defendant to any media about potential impact or collision in this case?
Oh, are you referring to what you've asked me previously about? Did I hit him or something of that? What do you mean specifically?
Have you seen any of the media statements by the defendant, 2020, Nightline, docuseries? Have you seen any of these statements in your...
Lily, the reason why all the photos are such bad quality is because nobody stopped to take any in a death investigation. No photos of anything, really, unfortunately. So that's actually, oh, that's a really bad pause. I'm sorry.
analysis?
Oh,
of
that
whether
one's
or not
too. Sorry. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. This is actually, that was from the police cruiser when they pulled up behind Karen's vehicle later on.
was a impact, a collision between the defendant and her Lexus and Mr. O'Keefe. Have you seen any of those?
I did see some statements, but that was after I rendered my opinion.
And some of those statements, after you rendered your opinion, did some of those statements come from the defendant herself?
Yes.
And when you listen to those statements, did you hear any of them talk about the idea or issue of collision or impact?
Yes.
And when you listen to those statements after you formed your opinions, did in any way change the analysis of your opinion?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why.
I loved this answer, and she was so quick.
Please do.
Because she had, the defendant had undergone a very stressful event, finding her loved one in the snow. And so after a stressful event, many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction. It's very common. And they do things that seem to be irrational. They ramble. They act bizarrely. They make statements that are irrational, that don't make sense, and they oftentimes tend to blame themselves for whatever has happened. I've seen this many, many, many times in the emergency.
Sorry I cut her off, but I couldn't wait because I was like, wow. Of course, I thought of that in my head somewhere, and even on chat, a lot of you have said I don't give much credit to that because people say weird things. She was questioning, like, could I have? Oh my gosh, because she's not denying that her taillight was cracked that morning. She even said there was a piece and part of it was off, and they were like picking at it because they were worried it was going to get on somebody's clothes. Even either Jen or Carrie, and I can never remember which one, either one of them said they saw that. They never said it was completely shattered. They said it was cracked. And there was like something like metal. Okay, so with that in mind, I've even thought to myself, well, I've said weird things. I've blamed myself for things I didn't do in the moment. I'm feeling guilty. I've never been in a situation like this. Most of us, thankfully, never have. But I've been in a stressful, traumatic situation, and you do say weird things and you do weird things. So I thought that was a really good answer.
Emergency department.
Does this happen moments after a stressful event?
Oh, yes.
Does it happen months later when you go on 2020 or Nightline?
I've never seen that situation.
No. Does it happen a year later when you go and speak to documentarians and be interviewed? Is that the same kind of condition you see a year later, year and a half later?
A grief reaction can last years.
What I also think is kind of silly about his question, and I understand where he's going with it, but she's recounting her experience. She's recounting it. So she's going to talk about what she said. So she's not still saying that. It's not like she's saying, I hit him. I think no, she's talking about the memory. She's talking about the moment. So I was kind of like, that seemed ineffective to me, but we're going to move forward. I think that was a good one for the defense. You tell me, but there is a big issue that came up. And many of you asked this in the last live. Dog DNA. Where was it? Did it exist? Should it? Could it? I'm sure we all thought about this last time. Well, this was a big deal for one big reason. It's not in evidence. There was no testimony from the Commonwealth. Remember, they rested their case. They didn't bring up the same witness they did last time who gave their opinion on the dog DNA, the DNA expert. That didn't happen. So it's not their turn, so to speak, to be introducing new evidence that the defense doesn't have someone to rebut or refute, right? So let's see what happens here, because this was a little interesting.
It usually is very brief, but it can last years.
Now, when you looked at the clothes in this case, Mr. O'Keefe's clothes, you are aware that those clothes were swabbed for DNA traces, aren't you?
Yes, I'm aware that some of the clothes were swabbed for DNA.
Right. Could we have Exhibit 147B, please? On the right arm, there were a number of different tears in that fabric that you looked at, weren't there?
Yes, there were a number of small round holes in that
You're
fabric.
aware, aren't you, that those holes were swabbed for traces of dog DNA?
Objection, Your Honor. I'd like to approach, please.
Okay, come on up.
Oh my goodness. So they're going for a sidebar, clearly, because of what just happened. But what actually happened after this was kind of crazy. This led to an argument by Alessi for a mistrial. And I guess rightfully so. I was thinking about it afterward, and Corey and I kind of went back and forth about it. But he's saying that this was improperly introduced. This was the first time that the jury heard about dog DNA on cross-examination. So this wasn't their turn to bring out that evidence because it wasn't already there. And he's going to say that it was deliberately done. And they also deliberately chose not to introduce DNA. So, of course, he's going to say this is so bad for the case that we're going to seek a mistrial with prejudice, that you can't put it back. You can't take away what the jury just heard. Now the jury's going to be thinking, they probably already were, to be fair, but it's different. Now the jury's definitely thinking about it. Before, it could have been a thought, but there was no evidence either way. Well, once you do a mistrial with prejudice, it's over. It means it can't be retried for the same offense. So it's done. No new trial. So let's listen to this. I thought this was really important. It is on 1.25, so it won't take long.
Attorney Brennan, just with regard to Dr. Russell, in open court in front of the jury, used the concept of DNA in this case. He has introduced it and brought it in for the very first time in front of the jury. He has done so intentionally. He intentionally brought up DNA. Based upon that intentional mention, the defense moves strongly, vigorously for a mistrial with prejudice. A mistrial with prejudice. There has been no mention in this trial of DNA with regard to the topic, with regard to what Mr. Brennan has raised. There has been none. Specifically, the prosecution had, in the first trial, had a witness, Terry Kuhn, with regard to DNA. For whatever reason, the prosecution has chosen not to bring that witness in who would testify perhaps to DNA. As a result of that strategic decision that the prosecution made, there's been no mention. I want to be very clear. The defense has been incredibly assiduous and meticulous about not mentioning DNA in any fashion, directly or indirectly. With regard to the hoodie shirt and the hole, the only thing that was adduced in direct examination was a mechanical function simply of Dr. Russell testifying that a dog tooth went in and came out and caused a certain mechanical effect on the yarn. Nothing even close to the mention of DNA. With regard to representations that Attorney Brennan has made that somehow there was a hearing that we were on notice, it is completely incorrect. Show me the hearing, show me the transcript where that has been discussed. The prosecution has also said, we're going to, or we always intended to bring on rebuttal, Dr. Crosby, who would talk about the supposed absence of DNA, the alleged absence of it. The problem with that of trying to rescue the mistrial that the prosecution has caused with prejudice is that Dr. Crosby could never testify about such a topic, because I would object and object because there would be no foundation, because the prosecution strategically chose not to bring in the foundation whatsoever in this trial. The fact that they did it in another trial, or perhaps did it, is irrelevant to this trial, as Your Honor has admonished several times. What happened this is a new trial, and whatever happens in the first trial is the first trial. So in conclusion, Your Honor, because of the conduct of the prosecution, and specifically the intentional mention of DNA, the prosecution has put in the jury's mind that topic that is irremediable. That cannot be reversed. That cannot be cured. That cannot be ameliorated with a jury instruction. That cannot be dislodged. The prosecution has to suffer the consequences of its own intentional actions of bringing up that topic. Ms. Reed is entitled, under the Constitution, under the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights, to a fair trial. And what has just happened is antithetical, abhorrent to a fair trial.
I was wondering if this is so unrelated, but kind of related. I was wondering if they ever have experienced an attorney who had a straight up heart attack. I hope that never happens. But when he's doing that, I get so afraid. Like when people are yelling, I get super scared. Like I get scared for their health more than if they're just yelling at me. I'm like, that vein in your neck, like, I just get really worried for him.
The only remedy is a mistrial with prejudice.
Oof. What did you think of that? Courtney's like, no dog DNA, no dog bite. I agree and I disagree. I think that this is very hard because human DNA and canine DNA are very different. A lot of places, and there's only like one, like UC, what is it, like UC Davis. UC Davis. I think that's like one of the only, or at least more prominent, animal DNA specialty centers that test for this. And you have to also remember, these clothes were not preserved properly either. So I think it's kind of questionable either way. But anyway, that's really not important. What's important is this next part. So at this point, the jury has it in their minds. Fair enough. They probably already did. But now they surely have it in their minds, right? Because Brennan brought it up. And that was pretty intense. And then Brennan's going to waltz right up there. And he's going to pretty much say, you can yell all you want, but this is a rebuttal argument. The defense brought up dog bites. So what reasonably follows is to ask about DNA or the lack thereof. He's just challenging Dr. Russell's credibility. That's what he says he's doing. He's going to come up with his sticky notes. I was like, wow, they must be so fast, or fastly. They're fastly preparing for this argument because he knew he was going to bring it up. So he has to be over there like scribbling his argument. I would be terrified. But here he comes.
Inquiring of Dr. Russell about the absence of dog DNA is not only proper and permissible, it's essential, and the Commonwealth is entitled on cross-examination to explore theories and facades that the defense creates if there is actual evidence that undermines or contradicts the representations that they are trying to portray to this jury. Let's be clear. The defense is on notice that there is no dog DNA in the sweater of John O'Keefe. let's be clear, the defense is on notice that we were not going to try to disprove all of their varying theories in our case in chief, but they were going to propose theories that we thought were unsubstantiated. We would do so in rebuttal. It is clear these witnesses are on the witness list. More so, the conversation and examination.
I really felt sorry, I'm interrupting him. I got sad when I was listening to the Alessi's argument because I don't know, it just I get it. This is a game, not a game. It's a back and forth. This is somebody's life. This is somebody that died. It's not a game like that. But like chess, you have to make moves, right? So on one hand, I understand it. I went to school to understand it. I get it. But on the other hand, it's like be fair. If we were all agreeing not to bring that up and then you bring it up and they're trying to be careful and like tiptoe around it and then Brennan does that, and I 100% think it was on purpose. And I think he knew he was going to make this argument. He knew that Canoni was going to be fine with it, not to, you know, go further and ruin it for you if you didn't see it yet.
Of Dr. Russell is replete in the historical record of this case. Dr. Russell herself testified on December 12, 2024, that she did consider the absence of DNA in her opinion. She disregarded it, she discounted it, she created false theories about the potential destruction of it, but she did testify this was part of her consideration for her opinions. Again, on January 7th, 2025, Dr. Russell again discussed the absence of dog DNA in John O'Keefe's sweater. Now, it may be inconvenient. It might be hurtful for the defendant's theories, for the creation they portrayed for this jury yesterday. But it is not improper. It's not unconstitutional. It's not irrelevant. It's very relevant. It is powerful evidence that the Commonwealth has to undermine this idea that the linear superficial abrasions on John O'Keefe's arm were somehow caused by a dog. They, on their case in chief, tried to create impressions about the cause of the abrasions to Mr. O'Keefe. The defense does not get to pick and choose what words the Commonwealth can or cannot use. They do not get to pick and choose what parts of Dr. Russell's opinions are important and not important. Because they chose not to emphasize, highlight, or discuss the absence of dog DNA on direct does not mean it's beyond the scope of direct examination. It means they did not want to talk about it because it was not helpful to them. There have been countless cross-examinations in this case where questions are asked beyond the scope of direct. This is not beyond it. It goes to the heart of her opinion. If I cannot cross-examine her, as proposed by the defense, about the heart of her opinion, she shouldn't give it. She shouldn't have an opinion because you can't come in and just take the favorable factions to yourself and leave out reality. I intend on asking Dr. Russell about her opinions, about the role that the absence of DNA played. Also, I expect to ask her about her attempt to diminish or demean the DNA evidence because it shows her inherent bias in all of her opinions, where she acts as an advocate, not as a scientist or a doctor. It is admissible evidence. We intend on using it. And when she returns to the stand, these are the very questions I'm going to ask her.
Dang, I got scared listening to that. He is not messing around. And I hear him. I hear him. After listening, I'm like, okay, I get it. You need to refute it. Fair enough. There have been things that are not favorable to the Commonwealth and they were able to bring up. I get it. So he has to challenge her dismissal of that same fact. Apparently, she did consider the DNA or the lack thereof. And it's relevant because if she's arguing that she didn't consider it and she's arguing it's a dog bite, then it can show bias if she's not going to be able to be asked about it at the very least, right? So unless he comes back, I'm not going to play all that. But he then again says, you know, it shouldn't be admissible. And they chose not to introduce it. They chose not to bring, it's kind of the same argument again. Well, Canoni's going to let it in, okay? That's what's going to happen. Was I surprised? Kind of, but kind of not. I was surprised that Brennan did it this way when they could have brought their own witness and talked about it. I don't know. I think it's an unstable argument. Like the DNA is unstable in and of itself, being an animal DNA, but also an unstable argument for both sides. Because as you can see, it doesn't really, but there was another issue and they did a little questioning outside of the jury, of voir dire, if you will. And he wanted to ask Dr. Russell a couple questions. This didn't come in, so I don't think it's even worth playing it because she said no. And see, she let something in, didn't let something in. So Brendan wanted to get into asking her about John Walsh. He was a deputy medical examiner for the armed forces. And he looked at the photos, I believe, of John O'Keefe's arm, and he ruled that they were not caused by a dog bite. She did consider that argument, but she disagreed with it. The judge decided not enough foundation, we're not letting it in. So there was that. And let's go to the next part. Let's see if this is it.
I saw an image.
Did you see a video when Dr. Welcher put blue paint on his arm?
So this is when they're getting into the experiment, and I thought this was important. This is about Dr. Welcher's blue paint experiment. Now, she kind of makes a funny reaction. So we'll go back when he asked her if she's seen the blue paint experiment.
An image. I saw an image.
Did you see a video when Dr. Welcher put blue paint on his arm and showed
She looked
the
down.
height and the location when it touched Alexis? Did you see that?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that.
I saw that image.
Did you consider what's called the text stream data? Do you know what text stream data is?
What?
Text stream, the black box that shows the operation of a car, how fast, how slow, acceleration. Did you look at any of that information before you formed your opinion?
I looked at it, but I honestly did not understand it.
Did you ask anybody to
You
help?
know what? You and about everybody else that has listened to that same testimony, ma'am. She's a doctor, sir. Why are you questioning her about text stream data? You already had enough experts talk about all that. She's a wound specialist. I was getting so mad. I was like, okay, well, we are going to get to the DNA. We are getting to the DNA, I promise. And we're going to be going through these pretty quickly.
Right sleeve. Yes.
Having an interest in dogs and dog bites, certainly you're aware in your experience, when a dog bites, it creates quite a bit of saliva, doesn't it?
Fair
can.
enough.
It can actually, a dog can froth, is what they call it. Excessive saliva when it's in the moment.
Some dogs, yes.
And some dogs, they can shed hair, especially when they're interacting with other objects, don't they?
They could.
Hair is considered trace evidence, isn't it?
Yes.
And saliva contains important items sometimes like DNA, correct?
Yes.
And that's considered oftentimes very important trace evidence.
Yes.
And Dr. Russell, are you aware that one of the criminologists took swabs of holes on the left sleeve of the sweatshirt?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, are you aware of that?
Yes.
You've heard of UC Davis, haven't you?
Yes. And in reference to that previous question, however, the swabbing was done many weeks after the death.
So there's one point, right? It was done way after. So we have to keep some of that in mind.
And there were images of clothing on the emergency room floor. So, yes, I am aware that there was swabs taken at some point.
Is that gratuitous answer part of your advocacy or part of your medical objective opinion?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And so you're aware that these holes were swabbed to send a sample to UC Davis, aren't you?
Yes.
UC Davis, do you understand they specialize in dog DNA?
Animal DNA, I believe.
And you also know, in giving it before you gave your opinion, that when they were tested, there was no dog DNA found in any of the samples. You knew that, right?
Yes,
In fact, what was found was pig DNA,
that's correct.
and there's no identification where the pig DNA came from, is there?
I don't think so.
So when you saw the information, after you claimed there is a dog, pubic Donald O'Keefe, when you saw the information that there were swabs done of those holes and the results were no dog DNA, did you consider that before giving your ultimate opinion?
Yes,
And in fact, you've tried to discount the significance of that evidence in the past, haven't you?
yes,
In fact, you have made claims about that evidence candidly with no foundation whatsoever, haven't you?
I explained why there could be no dog DNA found.
You were claiming that it was inconsequential because a number of speculative reasons, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
So the objection sustained. You can ask it differently.
When you were discussing the absence of dog DNA on Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt in the past, were you trying to make suggestions that perhaps the samples could have been tarnished or compromised in some way?
That's one possibility.
So Dr. Angelique said there's actually several reasons that no dog DNA would be present. She consistently refers to these bites and scratches as superficial. There's a likelihood of minimal DNA transfer. I also thought about the fact that there's degradation in a sample itself. So if it's been there for weeks, what they usually have to do, yes, they can swab it, but I'm not a specialist, I'm not an expert, but I've done a lot of research on it. They usually cut a piece of the actual garment and then they put it in, and I'm not going to even try to remember what it is, but it's the thing that spins, and they have to separate they put liquid on it and they have to separate the sterile water that would be mixed with the DNA from the fabric. And then they would drain the water, the sterile saline, into or sterile water into a test tube, and then they test it, right? I don't know if they cut pieces out. I don't know what the method was. If they're just swabbing it, it's a shirt, so it could have absorbed more. That's why they usually make cuttings of fabric, and they take the cuttings and do what I just said, and they try to extract it. So possibly they couldn't get enough DNA. Even in cases of human DNA, sometimes we don't get enough, and then you can't keep testing it because it degrades every time. Anyway, that was just my 2 cents. We're going to move on to the next.
In fact, you have admittedly very little experience with DNA.
I have little personal experience with DNA.
And yet, although you're not an advocate, you are willing to advocate trying to undermine the strength of that evidence, aren't you?
No, I am a scientist, and I'm trying to understand why it could have been negative.
I thought that was such a good answer. She's like, I'm not advocating for one side. I'm a scientist. She's trying to figure out how this happened. And in her expertise, what it looks like to her is what she has seen before. But now we're going to go back and we're going to refer to the blue paint experience. It's experiment again.
That's it, yes. And what slide number is that?
Oh, by the
100.
way, sorry. We went back. This is a lessee. Forgot to point that out. But this is important. And this was such a good point. Again, I liked listening to this because her opinion about this hit was important. Because remember, they said it was a side swipe, and that's why he didn't have lower extremity wounds and all that.
9. So, Dr. Russell, can you see what is depicted on that slide?
Yes.
Is that impact that is depicted on this slide, is that a clip or is that a direct impact to the arm?
I believe that that's a rather direct impact.
Okay, so this is a direct impact. And now,
So she does not agree that it's a side swipe. She says it's a direct impact.
from your experience, and you were asked about this on cross-examination, a direct impact to the arm, assume, as was discussed, a motor vehicle, 6,000-pound Lexus going 24 miles an hour in reverse with a direct impact on the arm. From your experience as an emergency medicine physician, what type of injuries would you expect to this arm?
So I would expect at least significant bruising, at least. But I would also expect fracture, possible dislocation of portions of the arm.
What portions of the arm would you expect fractures and dislocations?
Well, from this image, if it impacted that section of the arm, and let me use my pointer, right here.
And this is what I was thinking. If I was a juror, I would say, well, the prosecution kind of can have it both ways. It's either what he's showing. So if a doctor is going to say, okay, well, his arm is like this, and that's how they put it, and the car's hitting, they want to call it a side swipe, but they can have it both ways. So if it really did hit that way, and she's saying, oh, that would break your arms with all that force, then you can't then say, oh, well, wait a minute. No, maybe he didn't stand that way because you're showing it. That's what you're showing the jury.
Very good possibility that there would be a radius and ulnar fracture of the forearm or an elbow fracture.
Could you please stand up and with your Honor's permission, show where the radius and where the ulnar bones are of the arm? The lights on, please. Thank you. You can keep the lights on.
So the radius and ulnar are the two long bones in the forearm right underneath the skin. And then they join with the humerus bone here in the upper arm at the elbow. And those, of course, these bones are they're susceptible to fracture with a significant impact.
I've broken my arm there, broken on this side, and it doesn't take that much. I fell. I mean, a fall can break your arm. I shattered my palm. I broke my arm. I would imagine a car backing in like that would break an arm. And all she's trying to point out is like, that was a direct impact. That was not a side swipe. But guess where we're going? Here. But you know what? I always do this. I have to go back because I forgot one thing. My memory always, when I see something, I'm like, oh, wait, nope, gotta go back for a second. I forgot about this. And you're going to want to hear it. and then we'll get to the last one. Thanks for being patient.
When a person is impacted by a vehicle, it can result in a variety of different injuries or no injury at all.
Correct.
There's a number of dynamic factors involved that are very difficult to assess and predict, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, you did not do any accident reconstruction to try to identify the details of the mechanism of injury to John O'Keefe, did you?
I did not do accident reconstruction.
And so, having not done accident reconstruction, would you agree it's fair to say that you are not in an informed position to give an opinion as to how the injuries could or would have happened in this case?
I disagree.
Specifically, you were asked questions about the impact or collision in this case. How fast was the defendant's Lexus traveling when there may have been an impact in this case?
I understand possibly 24 miles an hour.
Who picked that number?
I have no idea.
Well, you heard it from somewhere and you're just giving an opinion on it. Where is that number committed to or derived from?
I don't know.
Well, if you're going to give an opinion based on what you're portraying as facts to this jury, you should have some certainty about the source of your material, shouldn't you?
You know, I'm an ER doctor, so in the ER, I've treated thousands of motor vehicle accident cases. And most of the time, I do not know what speed the vehicles were going at. I've never done accident reconstruction. I don't know any ER doctor that does accident construction or is trained in accident construction. It's not part of the job.
I totally agree, but you're having opinions you're giving on behalf of Mr. Alisi, and that's why I'm pressing you on these issues.
Alisi.
Sustained.
Okay. So what's interesting here is she's seen thousands of bodies. I don't think that can be overlooked. She isn't an accident reconstructionist. She's never said she has been. Maybe she could lie on her CV like some people. Joking. But I think he's going too far with her. I think he could have stopped in so many other ways and like let it kind of simmer, but he has to keep going. And she's really credible. So I'm kind of hung up on the injuries. And I think that's what's really keeping me from knowing what happened because I just don't think they match. So finally, we're going to get to, oh, you know what? I keep telling you finally we're going to get, but there was one other thing. I can just tell you what it was. It was a good point. He asked her about the snow and whether if it was cold, could that affect the way that his body was contained? Like that he didn't bruise as much in this night. She's like, no, because when you get injured and you get ice, you get it immediately. You don't get it gradually. And there's a difference. So I thought that was really interesting because I was like, oh, I would have never thought about that. But now we were getting to probably what a lot of people have been waiting for. The second witness of the day, Sergeant Nicholas Barrows. Barrows. He's from Dighton Police Department, not Canton, not Boston PD, Dighton, where Karen's car had been towed from. Remember that? He's been an officer since 2011, currently a sergeant. Now he's supervising people. He has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and he completed, of course, police academy training. The important thing to note is he confirms he had no prior personal or professional relationships with anyone involved in the John O'Keefe investigation. No Trooper Michael Proctor, former, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, none of those people. So I thought it was safe to say that he was unbiased, but Courtney disagreed with me. She disagreed. And I don't know if she was kidding or we were just going back and forth and she was like, no, I had never heard from him before. So I'm kind of acting like a juror because I haven't. Maybe, no, he did testify, but I guess it was very brief last trial and I must have missed it. So let's go a little further. I want to see. Here we go. Let's start here. Yep.
2022, did you receive some sort of a call to respond to a particular location? I don't want the address of the location. We'll get to that in a second. Did you receive some sort of a call in the afternoon?
I did.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
Around 2:30 in the afternoon, I received a call from the troopers assigned to the Norfolk District County DA's office in regards to a vehicle that was at a residence in the town of Dighton.
What were you asked to do? Why did you get that call?
The troopers said that they were coming into my jurisdiction, and as a courtesy, they wanted me to respond with them.
Is that sort of normal protocol? If you go into somebody else's jurisdiction, you let them know?
Yes.
So that was not necessarily unusual?
No.
About what time did you receive that first call?
The first call was around 2:30 in the afternoon.
Was there are logs kept of those kinds of things? If you get a call, you respond to
Yes.
location?
Yes.
At some
So what's interesting that you might want to take note of, it was January 29th, 2022. So the same day John O'Keefe's body has been found. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. He gets a call from Trooper Proctor in the DA's office about a vehicle that they wanted to retrieve from a residence in Dighton. And they said they would be there around 3 o'clock. Trooper Proctor personally called him. So he's going to talk about that.
point after you received that first call, did you receive any other call specifying a time of arrival for the MSP troopers, anything like that?
I did.
Describe that for us.
I got a second call around 3 p.m. From Trooper Michael Proctor stating that he was about 10 minutes away from the address in Dighton.
Remember this timeline because later on, we've already heard this. They claim they got the car at a different time.
At the point that you spoke with Michael Proctor, had you ever spoken to him in your professional or personal capacity ever before?
Never.
Did you know the name? Did you know who he was?
I did not.
Complete stranger.
Complete stranger.
What time did you actually arrive at the residence?
I arrived at the residence, I believe it was 3:27 p.m.
Sergeant Barrows, did you, I don't want the address, the cameras are rolling. Did you respond specifically to a residence in the city of Dighton?
Yes,
Did you at that time know who lived at that residence, who resided there?
I did.
How did you know that?
Early in the shift, when I came on at 8 a.m., the midnight shift, the outgoing shift, had told me that a resident of Dighton at that address had called looking for a ride to Brockton Hospital.
So it's not that he's saying he knows Karen's dad, because that can get misconstrued here. There was a call earlier for the same address, so you would take note of that. And that was when her dad was getting a ride to the hospital to see what happened with John. Okay, so that's that whole part. I'm hoping I'm not going too far. I don't think so.
Who did you know at that time, or who did you believe at that time to live at the address that you are now responding to?
William Reed.
That was Reed, R-E-A-D?
Correct.
Okay. Did you know anything about his daughter at that time, or did you just know the name William Reed?
I just knew William Reed, the name.
At the time that Michael Proctor called you, did he say anything about what his intentions were once he arrived at the location?
Yes, his intention was to retrieve a vehicle that he said was involved in a homicide.
He already said he was there to seize a vehicle that was involved in a homicide. He used that label for this case, and this was hours into the investigation. So this sergeant confirms that he's explicitly stated he intended to retrieve and seize the vehicle involved in a homicide. So of course the defense is highlighting this. We know why, because it's been touched by former Michael Proctor. And now the jury knows he's already been fired. So that's interesting.
Did he specifically say to you at 3 o'clock-ish in the afternoon he intended to seize the vehicle?
I believe the first phone call, that was his intention.
Meaning all the way back to 2:30?
2:30 is when he first called me and said that they were coming to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that that occurred in a homicide in Canton.
And you understood that to mean what? Retrieve a vehicle?
Seize.
Thank you.
Okay. So he gets there around 3:27, and this is what happens.
Did you observe anything of note about the rear end of that black SUV?
Yes, I noted in a report that there was damage to the taillight,
Can you describe for the juror, by the way, which taillight are we talking about?
the right rear taillight.
Can you describe for the jurors what you noted in terms of the damage to the right rear taillight?
I noted that the report said that there was right rear damage to that taillight.
When you say damage,
So to be clear right here, because this might be a little confusing, he's from a different jurisdiction. He's only facilitating a tow truck in his jurisdiction to come get a supposed homicide-involved vehicle. So he's taking a report of his own because he has to document his time, what he was doing that day. But be clear on this. This is not a case he probably thought he would ever have to deal with ever again. He's just doing his regular notes. So I think this is important because this is going to be questioned. He made note, though, at least, that there was damage to the back of the taillight. He did, because he has to observe, he has to be there to write things down. But I just don't think in that moment he thought this was going to happen. This was like a routine, people are retrieving a vehicle that's outside of his jurisdiction.
have you ever described that damage previously?
I have.
Can you tell us what that
Yep.
description is?
There was, it was damaged, the taillight was damaged, but there was a crack missing, but it was not completely damaged.
When you say there was a crack, do you mean there was a piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you call it?
The piece was about maybe this big,
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches. or
And
so.
how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in there.
I want to show you a photo. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to show Exhibit 13. It's been previously marked. Do you see what's depicted in this photograph?
I do.
What does that appear to be, just generally?
The right rear tail light.
Of what?
The Lexus SUV.
Is that consistent with the black Lexus SUV that you saw at the Reed residence?
That was the black Lexus. That was not the tail light the day I was there.
Can you do me a favor, Mr. Wolk? With the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear tail light, please?
Okay.
Do you see the condition of that tail light as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear tail light when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I thought this was interesting. People like when I say that, right? It's interesting. So he's saying that there was a piece missing, wasn't this? But I'm thinking, okay, it could have been the section that hit the traverse. He's observing only one part of the taillight being cracked and broken before it's in possession of these officers that we know have some bias against Karen from the beginning. So let's continue.
If the entire tail light had been broken out as it's depicted in this photograph, would you have made note of that?
Sustained.
Do you believe you would remember if the tail light, well, let me ask it a different way. The piece that you saw missing, but not completely damaged, is the reason that you use the phrase not completely damaged to highlight the fact that there was still more taillight attached to the vehicle than is depicted in this photo.
Sustained.
You can take this down. As you sit here and recall back to that, your observations, and you observed this for over the course of how long would you say? How many minutes?
Probably 20 minutes or so.
You actually wrote a report about this, correct?
Correct.
And you documented your observations, correct?
Correct.
In your documented observations, did you use the phrase cracked but not completely damaged?
I did not.
Sustained.
So I thought to myself, and you can tell me what you thought, how I would describe that. I would describe what they just showed as a shattered taillight. I would have said the taillight shattered and there's one piece remaining. That's how I would have described it, which isn't even that descriptive. But I'm thinking he described it as, what did he say? Partially broken, or like part of it was broken. I do believe him because of that. But of course, it was cracked but not completely damaged. But he didn't explain it in detail. Remember, he probably didn't think he would ever have to talk about this ever again. Is it an error that he made for not writing it down specifically the way that it was? Well, there's other errors that I think are more important and didn't come from him.
You've testified previously,
I have?
about a year ago.
Yes.
Did you use the phrase cracked but not completely damaged then?
The objection sustained, Mr. Jackson.
Ultimately, was the black Lexus SUV towed and cleared from the scene?
It was.
Is it your responsibility or part of your responsibility to log the time that things like this happen, like for instance the SUV is taken away?
When I cleared from the scene, yes.
What time was that when you cleared the scene?
I believe it was 4:17 p.m.
4:17 p.m. That's not what the report said. The Buchanan and Proctor said. They said it was 5:30. And when he was questioned about it, he said, we just wrote it down wrong. But then nobody actually fixed that in an actual document for an investigation. So now we're going to see some Ring camera footage in the driveway of Karen's SUV being pulled on a tow truck. And this is something I tried to show you about a week ago, but I thought I had the wrong side of the car. So I didn't continue showing you. This was in the documentary that we saw, and we saw it big. And that was my first thought. I was like, wait a minute. It's not broken. So that was my thought. We are going to take a look, but let's watch first and then we'll discuss.
Suffice it to say that SUV was not seized at a later time, correct?
Correct.
It was not seized at 5:30 p.m.?
No.
I'd like to show you another exhibit, if I could. This is Exhibit 105. Do you recognize this scene generally?
I do.
Do you recognize it as being, what do you recognize it as being?
This is the Reed residence.
Do you see some vehicles in that still shot of the video?
I do.
Describe what you see.
Oh,
That tow truck is diamond towing, and that other vehicle that's at the rear of that tow truck is the Lexus SUV.
If we could, with the court's permission, zoom in. It's high on the screen, correct?
What's that?
The vehicles are high on the screen as we're
Correct.
looking at it. Could we zoom in to the top left portion of the screen?
Okay?
Can we play this video?
Yes.
Here
Thank you.
goes.
Can you see what's depicted in the still image of that video right now?
I can.
I'm going to ask you if you'll turn to your right, concentrate on this area
Whoa, where's it going?
here. Do you see what's depicted in that still image?
I do.
Does that appear to be a taillight?
Yes.
Does it look clear? Does it look like it's shining red?
Okay, so I'm pausing right here so we can take a look at it because I also have a picture that I made for you. Maybe my picture will be better. Let me see. I think it's, yeah. Okay, so I made this little side by side for a reason because I'm really detailed and I want to know everything. And I wish I had a cursor, but I don't. But let's just take a look at the left side. See how there's that, what I'm going to call a white V that's kind of jutting out to the right side like an arrow. And then to right next to it is black. So you've got right near the Y, see where the Y goes for driveway? You've got the little white arrow going to the right. Then we have the black part and then we have red. Okay, well, go look at Karen's taillight when it's completely broken in the Sally port. If you look all the way to the right, you've got the white part. That's the end part of the broken red part above it. Then you got that black part, but then you don't have any red right there. Where those two lines are at the bottom of the taillight, they're red in the picture on the left. They're not red anymore on the picture on the right. So to be more clear about this, I made this. This part right here is still in both photos, but this part, hang on. Nope, that's the part we just looked at. Where's my other one? Oh, it's right here. Sorry, guys. What am I doing? There we go. This part is where the discrepancy is for me. On the left, it has red. On the right, it doesn't. That's a problem for me. Here's that part. I'm just showing it again. That part's right there. And then right next to it, it's red. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I don't know. Give me your thoughts. I examine things. I'm really detail oriented. I'm very visual. Blowing that up, I don't see the red in the one in the Sally port. I see the red in the one in the driveway. So that's concerning to me.
Looks clear.
The portion that is intact, does that appear to be brighter red?
Correct.
And the photograph that I just showed you a second ago, is that red portion there?
Can you rephrase that?
Sure. Let's go back.
He's talking
See
very
red?
low.
Yes.
All right. Is that the condition of the taillight as you saw it on January 29th around 3:15 to 3:30 when you got to the location?
It was.
Let's go back to the other exhibit, please. Exhibit 13. Can we zoom in, please? Can you see that this entire area is now missing?
I can.
So sustained. Just ask it differently.
It does look like it was there because it wouldn't have the ability to shine red because that is not the color of the light inside. The color of the light inside is just going to be a normal light like everybody has. The only thing that turns it red is that taillight cover. So right now I was like, I don't know if my eyes are playing tricks on me or what, but it does not look like it's there in the one in the Sally Port, but it does look like it's there in the other one. I don't know. You tell me. It was a lot.
I'd like to show you another exhibit, if I could. This is Exhibit 105.
Did we already see this? I feel like we did. I think the next part was him challenging it.
Was already there, or did they arrive after you?
The troopers were there.
This is Brennan.
Were they in the house or outside of the house when you got there?
They were outside in a pickup truck.
Did you see them get out of the pickup truck after you got there?
They got out after I identified themselves.
Did you ever see them approach and touch the rear taillight of the defendant's Lexus?
I did not.
Did you ever see them manipulate in any way that rear taillight of the defendant's Lexus?
I did not.
Did you see them do anything that was suspicious, inordinary, or unfairly remarkable relative to that car?
I did not know why he was asking this. It's the wrong time frame. They would not have been tampering with the taillight when they were at the house. Like, I was confused on the relevance. I was like, why is he? This is when it got on the tow truck. This is when it was still intact, supposedly. So why would this be relevant? Why would you be asking anything about this scenario? This isn't when it happened in the whole they did it, right? It's later when it's in their possession. So I thought this was a bad line of questioning, but you tell me. And then he's going to ask him about...
I did not.
When they spoke to you, they then went inside the house?
What do you mean by spoke to me?
After they introduced you introduced yourself to them, they went into the Reed house?
Yes.
And then they came out?
They came out much later.
And that vehicle was towed?
Correct.
At no time from when you got there until you left, did you see anybody from the state police in any way tamper with that vehicle, did you?
I did not.
No, because they wouldn't have done it. Why would they do it in front of everyone? Like, to me, that was a bad line of questioning. But again, the jury might not have caught on to that. I don't know. They only have one chance to really hear all that. So now he's going to challenge the report he wrote. But I want to keep an open mind because I keep thinking my eyes are playing tricks on me. I don't know.
In this case, didn't you?
I did.
And when you did, you had an opportunity to describe the damage to that taillight in any way you wanted to.
I did.
You could have gone into detail about size of the damage.
I could have.
You could have gone into detail about the shape of the damage.
I could have.
You could have gone into detail about the width of the damage.
I could have.
You could have taken photographs of the damage if you wanted to.
I could have.
In fact, there was no limitation on what you could have written in your report regarding the damage, was there?
No.
You write reports regularly, don't you?
I do.
You're trained at the academy. It's the best way to memorialize events.
Correct.
Because in time, your memory is not always as good later on than it is at the moment.
Correct.
What might be important or remarkable later might not be remarkable at the time you're making the observation.
Correct.
So you're taught at the academy to use as much detail as you can so that you can have an accurate memory later on.
Correct.
So my husband's like, playing devil's advocate here, let's say it was broken. Maybe it fell off on the way to the port, but nothing was documented. So, right. But then it was somehow found on 34 Fairview. And almost all the pieces were found. So I'm like, but that's the thing. And then you would have to also believe that glass stayed on her bumper, but they already kind of proved that didn't happen. And that was placed there because it didn't match any of the glass. It's a lot. It's a lot. But he's just making a point that like he didn't write it in a specific way inside of his report. But I was thinking he probably never thought he would have to talk about this again.
Ever suggested that that was in any way different than what you had seen in indictment?
Nobody asked me that.
You were asked to describe the damage, and you were shown that photograph. You never, ever suggested that there was a difference in the damage as you see it in that photo compared to what you remember, did you?
I'm sorry that you cannot hear him. I need to go back and watch his testimony. I should have done that before tonight, but I need to go back and compare because what he's saying is when he testified last time, he never said there was a difference in what he saw when he saw the broken one. He just said it was broken, but not all the way. Something minor, right? But I don't have a reason to think he's lying. I don't know if he thought the whole media circus would happen and this would blow up. I think he was probably like, car got on the tow truck. Like, not in-depth notes. I don't know. You tell me. But of course, he's challenging it. He's saying your memory back then was probably better than it is now.
I don't think anybody asked me to describe that.
Did you ever make a note or say anything that is dissimilar to what you remember at the last event that you testified at?
I testified that that was not the taillight the day that I saw it.
Did you testify at the last event?
Did.
Yes?
Yes.
You said that photo does not depict what you saw?
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
And when you testified to that at the last event, who was asking you that question?
District Attorney Lally.
Okay. And you remember making that comment under oath?
I do.
Do you remember that as well as your memory about what the taillight looked like back in Dighton?
I do.
So he's just challenging his memory. And then he's going to give him his actual testimony, his transcript.
It's
And
not
he's
in
going to look over it.
Yeah,
And guess what? He just said, because Brendan's like, when did you ever say that it looked any different? And
It's not in there.
it's not in there.
Yes.
So is he wrong? Did he misremember? A lot of misremembering. But then he's going to show him this. Again, I was like going back and forth, like someone said whiplash. Yeah, that's what I felt like. I was like, wait a minute. Now we're going to see this video. And now I'm going to really be confused. I'm going to really be confused. Now, this is when she supposedly hit the traverse, or no, she did hit it. We know she did hit it, but supposedly not hard enough, right? Let's look at her taillight.
Back one. Open right there. Zoom, please. You see, sir?
So they pause it, and now I'm looking at it. But here's what's really hard about this. And I'm not a expert, a forensic photography expert, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's snow, there's movement. So are we seeing, you know how sometimes when something's going fast, the light kind of trails, like you see a little trail. So I'm like, well, we know that part of it's broken. We just saw that. We saw what he said, that it's cracked and it's clear in one section. We saw that. We literally blew it up and saw it. So I'm like, are we seeing a trail? Because she's going forward and you're stopping the video. Are we seeing like a little trail of that same white portion? I'm calling it white, clear portion. Or is this the whole broken part? I can't tell, because let's just rewind it. To be fair, it's hard to tell, y'all. I must need to pause it. Hold on. Doesn't it look like right here, though, that it's there? Like, look at it closely right there. I see the red part. I feel like I still see the red part.
Stop, please.
I don't know. Let me look at the other picture. Hold on. Don't hate me. I want to see. Where's the picture of her taillight? No. Oh, we don't have it. There's like one. Kimber, where is it? This is what I get for not labeling them. The one of it totally cracked. I feel like it would be more than that section. Because then if we pause it here, it looks red.
Do you see that white part of the back of your right taillight?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
You see that,
I see one white part.
sir?
Can you zoom in a little bit more?
But I still see red. I don't know. I don't know. I'm like pausing because I'm like, that doesn't look like all of it's broken. It looks like a piece is broken.
I can.
You can or cannot?
I can.
You can. C-A-N can?
Yes.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Like, look at that. So if we pause it there, it's red. But he's choosing to pause it afterward. He's choosing to pause it later.
Stop.
Like right there. And he's going to back it up.
Bring it back, stop. Back more.
But he's only choosing to pause it when, because right now it's red.
Open, right there. Zoom, please.
I don't know.
You see, sir?
Too much reasonable doubt, in my opinion. My husband's using north. Don't say north. We don't know south and north. Just tell us right or left. But he said it kind of looks faint on the other side. The red should be just as deep as the other side. The north side of the footage looks a deeper red. Suggestion the cover was blown on the south side. South. Oh my goodness. He said, look at the glare off the walls and the snow. The bleed of red is glowing on the snow except the bottom portion. You would. Okay, where? Do I have to go back? Now I'm trying to be. Oh, I see what you're saying. Hold on. Let's play it one more time. So we're going to be looking at the red glare.
Stop.
It's red on the wall. It's red on the wall and it's red on the in the snow.
Bring it back, Stella. Back more.
Okay, we're almost. This is like the last clip we're watching.
You see, sir?
What? Am I at the right frame? No, I wasn't. Throwing pure white as opposed to full red. Am I making sense? Red glare, top side of image, juxtapose the bottom side.
I can see that.
So, I mean, he's agreeing. He
consistent?
can see the white part. I mean, so can I. But I can't definitively say that that's what's happening there. I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to convict someone. You see it on the bottom wall. You totally saw it. You're talking about what I was talking about, right? Look, like, hold on. I locked this. I'm going to unlock it for a minute. Blow it up. Now we're like investigators. Sorry, I have to do it slow. I don't have like a different way to do it. Okay. What I was saying is there's red over here. Is that what we're talking about? Or something else? You tell me. Someone else said, to me, it looks like the white light from the house reflecting on the red bumper. Yeah, because look, the red is there. Look on the right side. I don't know, guys. This is like the question of the whole case. I don't know. Is this the case cracker? That spray shouldn't happen if the cover was blown off. That's what I'm saying, because it's right there. That would be the portion that we would want to look at. I don't know.
Back more.
I think you're right. It would be way less red.
Right there. Zoom, please.
Because that was when a brake was going on. You can't look at it right here. We have to look when the brake is pressed. Right? Wouldn't it be more intense when the brake is on? I don't know.
I can see that.
Anyway, we've done enough of that. Oh, and then he makes him look at this, which we've already looked at. And I still feel like I see the shape of the light. Brain strain. Yeah, pretty much.
Can you take a look to the right? You see that right tail light, the white part?
I can.
Missing, yes?
Looks like snow is packed on it.
Exactly. That's what it looked like to John as well. And that's what it looks like to me because you can still see the shape. You wouldn't be able to see the little bump. But anyway, I don't want us to fight or anything. These are just observations. I'm pretending like I'm the jury looking at it. And I've told you, I've gone back and forth. I have gone back and forth. And we're pretty much wrapping up right now. Oh, hello. Let me see. Springing evidence in. That's what we just showed. Yeah, where am I? Oh, the baby's here. Yeah, that's what we just showed. Oh, my baby rascal. Okay, she's upset. I'm gonna have to go soon, but oh gosh, look at these people in the background. We're done. Let me just wrap this up. I have like one more clip I wanted to show you, just to be fair to everything.
Did you celebrate your birthday 2 years ago?
I did.
Kind of a big deal. It's your birthday, right?
Yes.
What day of the week was your birthday 2 years ago?
No idea.
Do you have a difficult memory, sir?
Yes.
The fact that you had a birthday, you recall, correct?
Correct.
The day of the week of that birthday may fall by the wayside in your mind, right?
Right.
Sustain us to the form, Mr. Jackson, is
Of
your
course.
witness.
The fact that you can't remember the day of the week, does that mean that you have a bad memory?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
Correct.
You remember being in Dighton, correct? Being called out to Dighton, to the residents of the Reeds.
Correct.
Do you remember the time?
I do.
Do you remember the weather?
I do.
Do you remember who you met there?
I do.
Do you remember the conversations that you had?
I do.
Do you remember the phone calls that you received?
I do.
The first one?
I do.
The second one?
I do.
Do you remember being in the garage and speaking with someone?
I do.
Do you remember it was this lady, pretty lady right here in the blue?
I do.
Do you remember meeting Mr. Reed?
Briefly.
Handsome gentleman with the gold tie?
I do.
You remember all that, right? Do you remember the SUV?
I do.
Do you remember the condition of the taillight?
I do.
I thought that was really good. That's kind of where I was going to end it. I don't know. It is a mystery to me. I can't answer it. I'm not on the jury, not my job. Can I be the 13th juror? Yes. Am I going to eat dinner right now? Yes. Do I remember what I ate 2 nights ago? No. But if you ask me something, I can remember certain things. I can remember speaking with someone. I can remember what we discussed in the chat, but there are going to be details that I don't remember. So I think that was a good point. And I also just want to say, yeah, I don't think it broke off on the way. I don't think any of that happened. I'm not sure. But I always like hearing from all of you. So if you're watching on the replay, leave it in the comments. If you're here right now, thank you for being here. And thank you for being a baddie. I have to make sure my comments are the right size. Look at this. I love chatting with all of you. I love coming on every night. Thank you for being so loyal and being here for me. I seriously appreciate all of you. And it has been so fun going over these. And I'm going to look at all your comments later. And you can always look at the chat later as well. It does load a couple hours after the feed is done. But thank you all so much. And yes, I agree with this comment. Alanya, am I saying that wrong? I think it's crazy that the state has spent so much money and time trying to convict Karen when there's so much reasonable doubt. I think that's why people are so mad. But on that note, thank you for being here. I hope we can be civil in the comments. And thank you so much for watching everything with me. And I will see you very soon, probably tomorrow. See you later. Good night.